Queen Zara sat on her massive crystal throne, her purple skin gleaming under the bright lights of the royal chamber. Her forearms moved gracefully as she reviewed the holographic reports floating before her. Each arm was as thick as a tree trunk, ending in claws that could crush steel. At 8 feet tall, she was considered small for a Velkan royal. But her presence filled the entire room. The throne room buzzed with activity. Velkan officers moved between workstations, their heavy footsteps echoing off the polished floors. Their Katonis armor gleamed like black mirrors, and their compound eyes tracked multiple data streams at once. This was the heart of the Velkan Empire, the most feared military force in 3 star systems. Your Majesty, General Voth approached the throne, his massive frame casting a shadow across the floor. The Galactic Defense Coalition has sent new recruitment files. Queen Zara gestured with one of her lower arms. Show me these potential allies.
How?
The hologram changed, displaying various alien species. First came the Thorian warriors, massive beings covered in natural bone armor. Then the Christic soldiers, whose diamond-hard skin could deflect plasma fire. Each species looked formidable in their own way. These look acceptable. Queen Zara nodded approvingly. What else? There is one more species, Your Majesty. General Voth hesitated. They call themselves humans. The hologram shifted again. Queen Zara leaned forward, then began to laugh. It started as a low chuckle, but grew into a roaring laugh that filled the entire chamber. Other Velkan officers stopped their work to stare. You serious? Queen Zara wiped tears from her 6 eyes. These soft pink things want to join our military alliance? The hologram showed human soldiers in training. They looked impossibly fragile compared to the other species. No natural armor, no claws, no venom sacs. Their skin looked thin enough to tear with a light touch. They were barely 6 feet tall, half the size of a Velkan warrior. Look at them. Queen Zara pointed with 2 arms simultaneously. They have no natural weapons. No armor plating? They cannot even see in multiple spectrums like proper warriors. General Voth shifted uncomfortably. The Coalition Admiral Kex seems to think they have potential. Your Majesty, Admiral Kex is growing soft in his old age. Queen Zara stood up from her throne, her full height impressive even by Velkan standards. These humans look like they would break if you breathed on them too hard. She walked to the main viewing screen, her forearms gesturing dramatically. Observe their so-called training. They use external tools for everything. Metal sticks that throw tiny projectiles. Explosive devices because they cannot generate their own bioweapons. They even need mechanical vehicles because their legs are too weak for proper mobility. The other Velkan officers began to laugh as well. The sound was like grinding stone mixed with metallic clanging. Your Majesty, one of the younger officers spoke up. Perhaps we should not judge them too quickly. Queen Zara spun around, her eyes flashing dangerously. Officer Crix, are you suggesting that these fragile beings could stand alongside Velkan warriors? Officer Crix lowered his head respectfully. I only meant that the Coalition must see something in them. The Coalition sees nothing, Queen Zara declared. They are desperate. The war with the Darkness Fleet has stretched our resources thin. They will accept anyone with a pulse, even these pathetic creatures. She returned to her throne and activated her personal communicator. Get me Admiral Kex immediately. Within moments, the wrinkled face of Admiral Kex appeared on the screen. The old Zenthari looked tired, his blue skin marked with the scars of countless battles. Queen Zara, what can I do for you? Admiral, I just reviewed your latest recruitment files. Please tell me the humans are some kind of joke. Admiral Kex's expression remained serious. They are not a joke, Your Majesty. In fact, I am assigning human units to the upcoming siege of Fortress Mordain. The throne room fell completely silent. Fortress Mordain was legendary, an impregnable stronghold that had never fallen in over 300 years. The idea of sending humans there was beyond ridiculous. Queen Zara stood up so quickly that her throne cracked. You cannot be serious. Fortress Mordain requires our best warriors. Sending humans would be like sending children to fight a star dragon. I understand your concerns, Admiral Kex replied calmly. But I have studied their tactical reports. These humans have something unique. Unique. Queen Zara laughed again. Yes, they are uniquely weak, uniquely defenseless, uniquely unsuited for warfare, Your Majesty. With respect, perhaps you should observe them in action before making final judgments. Ksh. Queen Zara's eyes narrowed. A dangerous idea formed in her mind. Very well, Admiral. I will observe them. In fact, I will position my personal fleet to watch this siege. When these humans fail miserably, as they surely will, I want the entire galaxy to witness it. Admiral Kex looked uncomfortable. Your Majesty, I do not think that is necessary. Oh, but I do. Queen Zara's voice became silky and dangerous. I want to see these great human warriors in action. I want to watch them run screaming from the first sign of real combat. And when they do, I will personally recommend that the Coalition stop wasting resources on such pathetic species. After ending the communication, Queen Zara turned to her officers. Prepare my flagship and escort fleet. We are going to Fortress Mordain, Your Majesty, General Voth asked. What are your orders regarding the siege itself? Queen Zara smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. We observe. We do not participate unless the humans manage to get themselves killed quickly, which they probably will. I want detailed recordings of their failure. The throne room burst into activity as officers prepared for departure. Queen Zara remained standing, looking at the human training footage still playing on the screens. Soft pink weaklings, she muttered to herself. This will be the shortest military campaign in galactic history. She had no idea how wrong she was about to be. The space around Fortress Mordain looked like a graveyard of ships. Twisted metal and debris floated in the darkness, remnants of previous failed attacks. Queen Zara's massive flagship hung in the distance, its weapons powered down but ready. She had positioned her fleet perfectly to observe what she expected would be another quick defeat. Captain. Ben Chen adjusted his helmet and checked his rifle one final time. Around him, his squad of 12 humans prepared their equipment in the cramped transport ship. Unlike the massive war vessels of other species, the human transport looked tiny and fragile. Remember the mission? Ben said into his comm unit. We take the outer defense tower and hold it for 6 hours. That gives the main force time to position for the real assault. Private Vera nodded, her young face serious behind her helmet visor. Sir, the intel says there are 40 defenders in that tower. Intel is often wrong, Ben replied. Could be more, could be less. We adapt. Across the battlefield, other Allied forces were already moving toward their targets. A squadron of Thorian warriors charged directly at the eastern wall, their bone armor gleaming. Christic soldiers formed a tight formation and marched toward the main gate, their diamond skin sparkling with reflected laser fire. On Queen Zara's flagship, the observation deck was crowded with Velkan officers. They watched the various attack formations with professional interest. Look at the Thorians, General Voth pointed with one of his arms. Magnificent charge formation. Very traditional. Queen Zara nodded approvingly. This is how real warriors fight. Direct, powerful, honorable. What about the humans, Your Majesty? Officer Crix asked. Queen Zara searched the tactical display. Where are they? I do not see any human formations. The display operator enlarged the view around the assigned human target zone. They could see the rocky terrain around the outer defense tower, but no sign of human forces. Perhaps they got lost, Queen Zara said with amusement. Or maybe they turned around and went home when they saw the fortress. Meanwhile, Captain Ben and his squad had already landed their transport in a crater 2 miles from their target. But instead of advancing directly like other species, they did something completely unexpected. Scatter formation, Ben whispered into his comm. Tom, take Alex and Sam around the north side. Vera, you and Rico go south. The rest of you follow me through the middle. The 12 humans split into 3 groups and disappeared into the rocky landscape. They moved low and slow, using the natural terrain for cover. When Velkan's sensors tried to track them, the humans seemed to vanish entirely. Where did they go? Queen Zara demanded, staring at the empty tactical display. Unknown, Your Majesty, the sensor operator replied. We had them for a moment, then they just disappeared. 12 beings cannot simply vanish. but that was exactly what had happened. The humans had spread out across a wide area, moving through crevices and behind rock formations that other species would consider too small or undignified to use. They carried camouflaged equipment and wore clothing that blended with the environment. Private. Alex crawled through a narrow passage between two boulders. His rifle was slung across his back and he moved using only his hands and knees. Behind him, Tom and Sam followed in single file. Any Velkin warrior would be too large for this route, and most other species would consider it beneath their dignity. Visual on the tower, Alex whispered into his cum. 2 guards on the upper level, probably more inside. Captain Ben responded from his position. Copy that. Vera, what do you see from your angle? 3 guards patrolling the base perimeter, Vera replied. They look bored. The human squad spent 20 minutes just watching and learning. They noted guard rotation patterns, identified weak points in the defenses, and planned their approach. Other species would have attacked immediately. But humans had patience. On the Velkin flagship, Queen Zara was growing irritated. This is ridiculous. Either they are hiding like cowards, or they have abandoned the mission entirely. Your Majesty, General Voth said carefully, perhaps we should contact them directly. No, let them embarrass themselves completely. At that moment, the human attack began. But it was unlike anything the Velkins had ever witnessed. Instead of a frontal assault, the humans appeared from 6 different directions simultaneously. They used hand signals to coordinate their movements, advancing in perfect silence. The fortress guards never saw them coming. One moment the perimeter was secure, the next moment 12 humans had surrounded the tower completely. The guards found themselves facing enemies from angles they had never considered possible. Surrender, and you will not be harmed, Captain Ben called out in the fortress guards' language. The confused guards, members of a species called the Grolics, looked around in panic. They had been trained to fight frontal attacks, not this impossible situation where enemies seemed to appear from nowhere.
Ow!
Did you get behind us? One guard shouted. We walked, Ben replied simply. The firefight was brief and precise. The humans used cover expertly, advancing and retreating in coordinated movements. When Private Vera took a hit to her shoulder, something extraordinary happened. Instead of leaving her behind as any sensible military force would do, the entire human squad immediately shifted their tactics to protect her. Rico and Sam created a defensive position around her, while Tom provided covering fire. Captain Ben personally carried her to safety, even though it put him at greater risk. Are they insane? Queen Zara watched in disbelief. They are risking the entire mission for one wounded soldier. It does seem inefficient, General Voth agreed, but the humans accomplished something impossible. Despite their concern for their wounded teammate, they successfully captured the defense tower with 0 fatalities. Vera's wound was minor, and within minutes she was back in action. Queen Zara stared at the tactical display in confusion. The tower that was supposed to hold for days against superior forces had fallen to 12 humans in less than an hour. How? She whispered, General Voth, check the reports. According to our sensors, they used terrain features that our computers classified as impassable. They approached from angles that were supposedly impossible, and they coordinated without any detectable electronic communications. Queen Zara shook her head. This makes no sense. They are weak creatures. They should not be capable of such tactics. Perhaps, Officer Crick said quietly. We do not understand their true capabilities. Queen Zara glared at him. But for the first time, doubt crept into her mind. These humans had done something that defied explanation. They had succeeded where stronger, better-armed species might have failed. Continue monitoring, she ordered. This was probably just luck. But deep down, she was beginning to wonder if there was more to these soft pink beings than met the eye. 3 days had passed since the humans captured the outer defense tower. Queen Zara stood in her command center, watching the tactical displays with growing confusion. The main assault on Fortress Mordain was about to begin, and every species had assembled their best warriors for the attack. The fortress itself was a marvel of military engineering. Built into a massive asteroid, it had walls 30 feet thick and energy shields that could stop Star Destroyer cannons. For 300 years, no army had ever breached its defenses. The graveyard of ships around it told the story of countless failed attempts. Your Majesty, General Voth approached with the latest battle plans. The Thorian assault force is ready to begin their attack on the eastern wall. The Christic formations will bombard the main gates. The Zelkin air cavalry will attempt to breach the upper defenses. Queen Zara nodded, studying the formations. Thousands of heavily armed warriors prepared for what would surely be a bloody battle. And the humans? They have positioned themselves at the base of the fortress, Your Majesty. Section 7, near the communications array. Queen Zara magnified that section of the display. She could see a small group of human soldiers, maybe 50 total, setting up equipment near the fortress walls. They looked impossibly tiny compared to the massive structure above them. What are they planning to do with such a small force? She wondered aloud. Perhaps they plan to wait until the main assault creates an opening, General Voth suggested. The battle began with traditional fury. Thorian warriors charged the eastern wall, their bone armor deflecting energy blasts as they carried massive siege hammers. The sound of their war cries echoed across space through the cum channels. Christic soldiers formed defensive squares and advanced methodically toward the main gates. Their diamond skins sparkling as enemy fire bounced harmlessly away, Queen Zara watched approvingly. This is proper warfare. Strength against strength, courage against courage. The fortress defenders responded with overwhelming firepower. Energy cannons emerged from hidden positions and began pounding the attacking forces. The Thorians pressed forward bravely, but even their thick armor could not withstand the concentrated fire forever. The Christic advance slowed as the defenders focused their heaviest weapons on them. The casualties are mounting, Officer Crix reported. The Thorians have lost 30% of their assault force. The Christex are requesting additional support, Queen Zara frowned. The attack was following the usual pattern of previous sieges. Brave warriors throwing themselves against impregnable defenses, achieving nothing except glorious deaths. Meanwhile, at the base of the fortress, Sergeant Cole was setting up the strangest military equipment Queen Zara had ever seen. Instead of weapons, the humans were assembling large speakers, mirror arrays, and what appeared to be some kind of broadcasting equipment. What is that? Queen Zara demanded, pointing at the human position. The sensor operator enhanced the view. Unknown devices, Your Majesty. They do not match any weapons in our database. Captain Ben stood among his troops, checking the equipment one final time. Everyone ready? Remember, this works only if we coordinate perfectly. Yes, sir, replied Specialist Nina, who was operating the audio equipment. Music files are loaded and ready. Positions are set, reported Corporal Hayes from his position on a nearby ridge. We can create light patterns across the entire fortress. Face. Broadcasting array is online, added Tech Specialist. Ravi, we can override their internal communications whenever you give the word. Queen Zara watched in bewilderment as the humans began their attack. But instead of charging the walls or firing weapons, they did something completely unprecedented. Music began blasting from the speakers. Not just any music, but a carefully selected mix of the most unsettling human compositions ever created. Heavy metal mixed with dissonant classical pieces, children's nursery rhymes played backwards, and sounds that seemed designed to create maximum psychological discomfort. What are they doing? Queen Zara stared in disbelief. The fortress defenders were equally confused. The music was so loud it could be heard even inside the heavily shielded structure. But more disturbing than the volume was the effect it had on the defenders' minds. The alien soldiers inside began to feel anxious and disoriented. Then the light show began. Corporal Hayes and his team used the mirror arrays to create flashing, pulsing patterns across the fortress walls. The lights seemed random at first, but they followed specific sequences designed to trigger discomfort in most known alien species. Sir, one of the fortress defenders called to his commander. The external sensors are showing strange readings. The lights are creating some kind of interference. The fortress commander, a grizzled veteran named General Crotch, studied the displays. Ignore it. Continue firing on the main assault forces. But ignoring the human psychological assault proved impossible. The music grew louder and more disturbing. The light patterns became more complex and disorienting. Then the humans began their most unsettling tactic. Technical specialist Ravi activated the broadcasting override. Suddenly, the fortress's internal communication system began playing recordings of voices speaking in the defenders' native languages, but saying things that made no sense. "The walls are melting," whispered a voice in the Grolix language. "Your weapons are pointing at your friends," another voice said in Thorian. "Floors disappearing beneath your feet," came a message in Christic. The defenders tried to ignore these messages, but they kept coming. Mixed with the impossible music and the flashing lights, the psychological pressure began to mount. "Sir," another defender approached General Crouch. "Some of the soldiers are reporting that they found strange objects in their quarters." "What kind of objects?" "Personal items that should not exist here. Family photos of species we have never seen. Toys from planets we have never visited. Food from worlds that are not in our databases." General Crotch frowned. The humans had somehow infiltrated the fortress and planted these items during the night, but how was impossible. The fortress was completely sealed. Queen Zara watched the tactical display as something unprecedented began to happen. The fortress's weapons fire became erratic and uncoordinated. Defenders began abandoning their posts to search for explanations for the strange phenomena affecting their base.
"Your Majesty,"
General Voth reported with amazement in his voice. "The fortress defenders are requesting permission to surrender." Queen Zara's forearms dropped to her sides in shock. "They want to surrender? 250 humans with music equipment? According to their communications, they believe the humans have used some kind of advanced mental warfare technology. They think continuing the fight would result in permanent psychological damage to their forces. The greatest fortress in known space, which had withstood 3 centuries of direct military assault, was surrendering without firing a single shot at the humans who had defeated it." Queen Zara stared at the display, her mind struggling to process what she had witnessed. These soft, weak humans had accomplished what armies of the galaxy's strongest warriors could not. How? She whispered, the question echoing through her command center. Queen Zara stood in her command center, still staring at the tactical display showing Fortress Mordaine's surrender. Her mind raced as she tried to understand how 50 humans with music equipment had accomplished what her entire military doctrine said was impossible. "Your Majesty," General Voth approached cautiously, "perhaps we should return to Velkin space. The siege is complete." Queen Zara nodded slowly, her 6 eyes still fixed on the human positions. "Yes, prepare for departure. But first, I want a complete analysis of their tactics. Every recording, every sensor reading, everything." As her flagship began to turn away from the fortress, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Red emergency lights bathed the command center in an ominous glow. "What is happening?" Queen Zara demanded. Officer Crix worked frantically at his station. "Your Majesty, we are detecting multiple ships approaching fast. Configuration unknown, but they are not broadcasting coalition identification codes." The main viewing screen activated, showing a fleet of dark vessels emerging from behind a nearby asteroid. These ships flew no flags and bore no identifying marks. Pirates and rebels often use such anonymous fleets for surprise attacks. "Battle stations," Queen Zara ordered. "Prepare defensive formations." But the unknown ships were already too close. Boarding pods launched from the enemy vessels, streaking toward Queen Zara's flagship like deadly arrows. The Velkin defensive guns tried to intercept them, but several pods managed to attach to the ship's hull. "Hull breach in sections 4, 7, and 12, reported the damage control officer. "Enemy forces are boarding us." The attackers poured through the breached sections like a dark tide. They were Velkins, but not from Queen Zara's forces. These rebels wore black armor instead of the traditional royal purple, and their faces were marked with the scars of revolution. "Protect the Queen!" General Voth shouted. Drawing his massive plasma rifle, The battle inside the ship was fierce but brief. The rebels had planned their attack perfectly, using the element of surprise to overwhelm the royal guards. Within 20 minutes, they had captured the command center and surrounded Queen Zara. The rebel leader removed his helmet, revealing the scarred face of Commander Drex, a former Velkan general who had been exiled for questioning royal policies. "Your Majesty," Drex said with mock politeness, "you are now my prisoner." Queen Zara stood tall despite her situation. "What do you want, traitor?" "Justice," Drex replied. "For too long, the Velkan Empire has oppressed the outer colonies. Today, your execution will send a message across the galaxy that the age of royal tyranny is ending." They transported Queen Zara to Drex's command ship, a modified battlecruiser that served as the rebel headquarters. Her loyal officers were either dead or captured, and her rescue seemed impossible. Back at Fortress Mordain, news of Queen Zara's capture reached the coalition forces quickly. Admiral Kex called an emergency meeting of all senior officers. "The situation is critical," Admiral Kex announced to the assembled commanders. "Queen Zara represents the most powerful ally we have against the Darkness Fleet. If the rebels execute her, it could destabilize the entire Velkan Empire." Captain Ben sat among the other officers, listening carefully. Around the table were representatives from dozen species, all experienced military leaders. "What are our rescue options?" asked Colonel Thane, the Thorian commander. Admiral Kex shook his head grimly. "The rebel stronghold is heavily fortified. They have taken position inside the Blackstone Nebula, where our sensors cannot penetrate effectively. Any rescue attempt would be essentially a suicide mission." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. Queen Zara was beyond help. "I volunteer," Captain Ben said quietly. The other officers turned to stare at him. General Crotch, the former fortress commander who had surrendered to the humans, looked particularly surprised. Captain Admiral Kex said gently, "I appreciate your courage, but this mission is impossible. The rebels are expecting rescue attempts. They have prepared for every conventional approach." "Who said anything about conventional?" Ben replied. Admiral Kex studied the human captain's face. "Explain your thinking." Ben stood and walked to the tactical display. "Every species in this room thinks about warfare the same way. Direct assault, overwhelming firepower, traditional formations. The rebels are prepared for that kind of attack." He manipulated the display, showing the rebel stronghold, but they are not prepared for something they cannot understand or predict. "You mean your psychological warfare tactics?" Colonel Thane asked skeptically. "Those work against fortress defenders, but not against determined rebels holding a hostage." "Not psychological warfare," Ben corrected. "Something else entirely. Something so outside normal military thinking that they will never see it coming." Admiral Kex looked intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" "Give me 12 volunteers and one small transport ship. No weapons, no armor, nothing that looks threatening. We go in looking like refugees or traitors, and then?" Ben smiled. "We do what humans do best. We improvise." Within 6 hours, Ben had assembled his team. Most were veterans from the fortress siege, including Private Vera, whose shoulder wound had healed completely. They wore civilian clothing and carried no visible weapons. Their transport ship looked like a damaged cargo vessel, complete with fake burn marks and malfunctioning systems. As they approached the rebel stronghold, they broadcast a distress signal. "This is civilian transport Nova 7, Ben radioed to the rebel ships. "We have engine failure and are requesting emergency assistance." The rebels, confident in their security, allowed the damaged transport to dock. They expected to find either genuine refugees or perhaps coalition spies carrying conventional weapons. Instead, they found something completely outside their experience. The 12 humans had concealed their equipment in ways that no alien military scanner would recognize. Their weapons were disguised as medical supplies, construction tools, and emergency repair equipment. More importantly, they carried items that no alien would consider dangerous: cleaning supplies, cooking materials, and basic maintenance gear. "Search them thoroughly," ordered the rebel guard captain. The rebels found exactly what they expected: frightened civilians with harmless cargo. They were escorted to a holding area, while the rebels decided what to do with them. But that was exactly what Ben had planned. The humans were now inside the most secure rebel facility in the galaxy, and their real mission was about to begin. Phase 1 complete, Ben whispered to his team as they were locked in their holding cell. Now we show these rebels why humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The rescue of Queen Zara was about to begin, and it would redefine everything the aliens thought they knew about human warfare. Inside the rebel stronghold, Captain Ben and his team sat in their holding cell, waiting for the right moment. The rebels had searched them thoroughly but found nothing dangerous exactly as planned. What the aliens did not understand was that humans could turn almost anything into a tool for survival. Private. Vera quietly mixed cleaning chemicals she had brought in her medical kit. The combination would create a harmless but extremely foul-smelling gas. Corporal Hayes disassembled his emergency repair tools, reassembling them into lock-picking devices. The other team members prepared their own improvised equipment. Meanwhile, Queen Zara was held in the command center, chained to a chair while Commander Drex prepared his execution broadcast. Cameras were positioned around the room, ready to transmit her death across the galaxy as a symbol of rebellion. "Your Majesty," Drex said mockingly, "in 1 hour, every planet will watch the fall of the Velkan Empire. Your death will inspire revolutions on 100 worlds." Queen Zara maintained her dignity despite her situation. "You think killing me will bring peace? You will only bring chaos and war." "Sometimes chaos is necessary for change," Drex replied, unknown to the rebels. The humans had been busy during their first hour of captivity. Ben had studied the facility's layout by listening to guard conversations and observing patrol patterns. His team had already begun their infiltration. The first sign of trouble came when the ventilation system began pumping Vera's chemical mixture throughout the rebel base. The smell was so terrible that guards abandoned their posts to find fresh air. In the confusion, Hayes picked the lock of their cell, and the team slipped into the maintenance corridors. "This is impossible," Ben whispered to his team as they crawled through ducts barely large enough for human bodies. No Velkan could fit through these passages. They never considered this route. The humans moved through the ship's infrastructure like ghosts. They used maintenance shafts, electrical conduits, and even garbage disposal systems to reach their target. Other species would consider such routes beneath their dignity. But humans had no such limitations. Tech specialist Ravi hacked into the ship's internal systems. Using a device he had built from kitchen equipment and electronic components salvaged from their transport. Within minutes, he had access to the security cameras and communication systems. "I can see the Queen," Ravi reported quietly. "Command Center, Level 7. Heavy guard presence, but they are all focused outward." "Perfect," Ben replied. "They are expecting an external assault, not an internal rescue." The team split into 3 groups, each with a specific mission. Ben led the main rescue group toward the command center. Vera's team created diversions throughout the ship using improvised smoke bombs and noisemakers. Hayes' team secured their escape route back to the transport bay as they approached the command center. Ben's group encountered their first real challenge. 6 heavily armed rebels guarded the entrance, and there was no way to sneak past them. "Sir," whispered Specialist Rico, "we cannot fight 6 armed guards with improvised weapons." Ben smiled. "Who said anything about fighting?" He pulled out his remaining medical supplies and began mixing a powerful sedative with a contact agent. Within minutes, it created a substance that would cause unconsciousness through skin contact. The humans waited until the guard rotation, then quickly applied the mixture to door handles, weapon grips, and other surfaces the guards would touch. Within 10 minutes, all 6 rebels had collapsed peacefully, completely unharmed, but deeply asleep. "Incredible," Rico whispered. "They never even knew we were here." The humans entered the command center just as Commander Drex was about to begin the execution broadcast. The rebel leader turned in shock to see 12 humans emerging from what should have been secure areas. "It's impossible." "How did you get in here?" "We walked," Ben replied, echoing his response from the fortress siege. The rescue that followed was unlike anything ever recorded in military history. The humans did not charge in with overwhelming force or engage in a prolonged firefight. Instead, they systematically dismantled the rebel operation using tactics that defied all. Conventional understanding, Rico and Sam disabled the broadcast equipment using techniques learned from video game repair. Nina and Alex freed Queen Zara using lockpicks made from kitchen utensils. The other team members secured the area using improvised restraints, created from medical tape and cleaning supplies. The most remarkable moment came when one of the rebel guards, badly wounded in an earlier skirmish, collapsed near Ben. Without hesitation, the human captain immediately began treating the rebels' injuries. Even though this enemy had been planning to execute Queen Zara asked as Ben bandaged the rebels' wounds, "Why are you helping someone who wanted to harm me?" Ben looked up from his work. "Because he is hurt and I can help him. It does not matter what side he is on." Queen Zara stared at this scene in amazement. Throughout her long life, she had never seen warriors show such compassion for their enemies. Vulcans would leave wounded foes to die. Most species considered mercy a sign of weakness. "Your Majesty," Ben said as he finished treating the rebel, "we should leave now. My team has secured an escape route." During their journey back to Coalition space, Queen Zara observed the human team carefully. She watched them share their limited food supplies equally. She saw them take turns caring for the wounded rebel they had brought with them. She noticed how they worked together without conflict or competition. "Captain Ben," she finally said, "I need to understand something. Your species has no natural weapons, no armor, no obvious military advantages. Yet you succeed where others fail. How?" Ben considered his answer carefully. "Your Majesty, other species fight to win. Humans fight for each other. When we know that our friends depend on us, we become capable of anything." Queen Zara nodded slowly. She finally understood what made humans dangerous. It was not their weapons or their tactics. It was their ability to care about others more than themselves. Upon returning to Vulcan space, Queen Zara made an unprecedented announcement. She established the first human Vulcan military academy and declared humans to be the most valuable allies in the galaxy. Once thought strength came from natural weapons and thick armor, she told her people, "I was wrong. True strength comes from the bonds that make you willing to risk everything for others." The galaxy would never underestimate humans again.